Welcome aboard, fellow enthusiasts, as we embark on another incredible video. Greetings, explorers of knowledge. Join us as we embark on a quest to understand Brazil 1985 film. Brazil is a 1985 dystopian science fiction black comedy film directed by Terry Gilliam and written by Gilliam, Charles McKeown and Tom Stoppard. The film stars Jonathan Pryce, Robert De Niro, Katherine Helmond, Ian Holm, Bob Hoskins, Michael Palin, Ian Richardson, Peter Vaughan, and Kim Greist. The film centers on Sam Lowry, a low-ranking bureaucrat trying to find a woman who appears in his dreams while he is working in the mind-numbing job and living in a small flat set in a dystopian world in which there is an over-reliance on poorly maintained and rather whimsical machines, and where people found guilty of crimes are liable for the costs of their interrogation by torture. Brazil's satire of technocracy, bureaucracy, hyper-surveillance, corporate statism, and state capitalism is reminiscent of George Orwell's 1949 novel 1984, and it has been called Kafkaesque as well as absurdist. Sarah Street's British National Cinema 1997 described the film as a fantasy satire on bureaucratic society, and John Scalzi's Rough Guide to Sci-Fi Movies 2005 described it as a dystopian satire. Jack Matthews, a film critic and the author of The Battle of Brazil 1987, described the film as satirizing the bureaucratic, largely dysfunctional industrial world that had been driving Gilliam crazy all his life. Despite its title, the film is not about the country Brazil, nor does it take place there. It is named after the recurrent theme song, Ariberoso's Acora do Brasil, known simply as Brazil to British audiences, as performed by Jeff Mulder. Although a success in Europe, the film was unsuccessful in its initial North American release. It since has become a cult film. In 1999, the British Film Institute voted Brazil the 54th greatest British film of all time. In 2017, a poll of 150 actors, directors, writers, producers, and critics for Time Out magazine saw it ranked the 24th best British film ever. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of plot in this section. In a dystopian, polluted, hyper-consumerist, overbearing, bureaucratic, totalitarian future based on elements of the 20th century, Sam Lowry is a low-level government employee who frequently dreams of himself as a winged warrior saving a damsel in distress. One day, shortly before Christmas, an insect becomes jammed in a teleprinter, which misprints a copy of an arrest warrant it was receiving. This leads to the arrest and death during interrogation of cobbler Archibald Butler instead of suspected terrorist Archibald Tuttle. Sam discovers the mistake when he finds that the wrong bank account has been debited for the arrest. He visits Butler's widow to give her the refund, where he catches a glimpse of her upstairs neighbor Jill Layton, a truck driver, and is astonished to discover that Jill resembles the woman from his dreams. Sam frantically tries to approach Jill, but she disappears before he can find her. Jill has been trying to help Mrs. Butler establish what happened to her husband, but her efforts have been obstructed by bureaucracy. Unbeknownst to her, she is now considered a terrorist accomplice of Tuttle for attempting to report the wrongful arrest of Butler. Meanwhile, Sam reports a fault in his apartment's air conditioning. Central services are uncooperative, but Tuttle unexpectedly comes to his assistance. Tuttle explains that he used to work for Central Services but left because of his dislike of the tedious and repetitive paperwork, and now illegally works as a freelance heating engineer. Tuttle repairs Sam's air conditioning, but when two Central Services workers, Spoor and Dowser, arrive, Sam has to stall to let Tuttle escape. Sam discovers that Jill's records have been classified, and the only way to access them is to be promoted to information retrieval. He had previously turned down a promotion arranged by his high-ranking mother Ida, who is obsessed with the rejuvenating plastic surgery of cosmetic surgeon Drive Jaffe. Sam retracts his refusal by speaking with Deputy Minister Mr. Helpman at a party hosted by Ida. After obtaining Jill's records, Sam tracks her down before she can be arrested. Sam clumsily confesses his love to Jill, and they cause mayhem as they escape government agents. They stop at a mall and are frightened by a terrorist bombing, part of a campaign that has been occurring around the city. Then government agents arrive and take Sam. He awakens briefly detained in police custody. At work, Sam is chastised by his new boss Mr. Warren for his lack of productivity. Sam returns home to find that Spoor and Dowser have repossessed his apartment. Tuttle appears in secret and helps Sam exact revenge on the two Central Services workers by filling their environment suits with raw sewage. Jill finds Sam outside his apartment, and the two take refuge in his unoccupied home, where they share their first kiss. Sam falsifies government records to indicate her death, allowing her to escape pursuit. The two have sex overnight, but in the morning are apprehended by the government at gunpoint. Sam learns that Jill was killed during his arrest. Charged with treason for abusing his new position, Sam is restrained in a chair in a large, empty cylindrical room, to be tortured by his old friend Jack Lint. As Jack is about to start the torture, Tuttle and other members of the resistance break into the ministry, shooting Jack, rescuing Sam and blowing up the ministry building. Sam and Tuttle flee together, but Tuttle mysteriously disappears amid a mass of scraps of paperwork from the destroyed building. Sam stumbles into the funeral of Ida's friend, who has died following botched cosmetic surgery. Sam discovers that his mother now resembles Jill and is too busy being fawned over by young men to care about her son's plight. Government agents disrupt the funeral, and Sam falls into the open casket. Through a black void, he lands in a street from his daydreams and tries to escape police and monsters by climbing a pile of flex ducts. Opening a door, he passes through it and is surprised to be in a truck driven by Jill. The two leave the city together. However, this happy ending is a delusion. It is revealed that Sam is still strapped to the torture chair. Realizing that Sam has descended into irrecoverable insanity, Jack and Mr. Helmond declare him a lost cause and leave the room. Sam remains in the chair, smiling and humming a Cora du Brasil to himself. Let's zoom in on main cast and understand its implications. Jonathan Pryce as Sam Lowry. Pryce has described the role as the highlight of his career, along with that of Lytton Strachey in Carrington. Tom Cruise was also considered for the role. Kim Greist as Jill Layton. Gilliam's first choice for the part was Ellen Barkin, also considered with Jamie Lee Curtis, Rebecca De Mornay, Ray Don Chong, Joanna Pakua, Rosanna Arquette, Kelly McGillis and Madonna. Gilliam was reportedly dissatisfied with Greist's performance and chose to cut or edit some of her scenes as a result. Robert De Niro as Archibald Harry Tuttle. De Niro still wanted a part in the film after being denied that of Jack Lint, so Gilliam offered him the smaller role of Tuttle. Katherine Helmond as Mrs. Ida Lowry. According to Helmond, Gilliam called her and said, "I have a part for you, and I want you to come over and do it, but you're not going to look very nice in it." The makeup was applied by Gilliam's wife, Maggie. During production, Helmond spent 10 hours a day with a mask glued to her face. Her scenes had to be postponed due to the blisters this caused. Ian Holm as Mr. Kurtzman, Sam's boss. Bob Hoskins as Spoor, a government-employed heating engineer who resents Harry Tuttle. Michael Palin as Jack Lint. Robert De Niro read the script and expressed interest in the role, but Gilliam had already promised the part to Palin, a friend and regular collaborator. Palin described the character as someone who was everything that Jonathan Pryce's character wasn't. He's stable. He had a family. He was settled, comfortable, hard-working, charming, sociable and utterly and totally unscrupulous. That was the way we felt we could bring out the evil in Jack Lint. Ian Richardson as Mr. Warren, Sam's new boss at Information Retrieval. Peter Vaughan as Mr. Eugene Helpman, the Deputy Minister of Information. Now, let's redirect our focus towards cameos and discover its significance in our narrative. Co-writer Charles McKeown as Harvey Lime, Sam's co-worker director Terry Gilliam as the smoking man at Shangri-La Towers. As we enter this new phase, let's analyze writing from different angles and evaluate its significance. Gilliam developed the story and wrote the first draft of the screenplay with Charles Olverson, who was paid for his work but was ultimately uncredited in the final film. For nearly 20 years, Gilliam denied that Olverson had made any material contribution to the script. When the first draft was published, an original in-progress documents emerged from Olverson's files. However, Gilliam begrudgingly changed his story. This was too late for either credit on the film or a listing on the failed Oscar nomination for Olverson. He has said that he would not have minded the Oscar nomination, even though he didn't think much of the script or the finished film. Gilliam, McKeown and Stoppard collaborated on further drafts. Brazil was developed under the titles The Ministry and 1984, the latter a nod to not only Orwell's original 1984 but also to directed by Federico Fellini. Gilliam often cited Fellini as one of the defining influences on his visual style. During the film's production, other working titles floated about, including The Ministry of Torture, How I Learned to Live with the System So Far, and So That's Why the Bourgeoisie Sucks, before settling on Brazil, relating to the name of its escapist signature tune. In an interview with Salman Rushdie, Gilliam stated, Gilliam sometimes refers to this film as the second in his trilogy of imagination films, starting with Time Bandits 1981 and ending with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen 1988. All are about the craziness of our awkwardly ordered society and the desire to escape it through whatever means possible. All three movies focus on these struggles and attempts to escape them through imagination. Time Bandits, through the eyes of a child, Brazil, through the eyes of a man in his 30s, and Munchausen, through the eyes of an elderly man. In 2013, Gilliam also called Brazil the first installment of a dystopian satire trilogy it forms with 12 Monkeys and The Zero Theorem, although he later denied having said this. Gilliam has stated that Brazil was inspired by George Orwell's 1984, like he has admitted never having read, but is written from a contemporary perspective rather than looking to the future as Orwell had. In Gilliam's words, his film was the 1984 for 1984. Critics and analysts have pointed to many similarities and differences between the two, an example being that contrary to Winston Smith, Sam Lowry's spirit did not capitulate as he sank into complete catatonia. The film's ending bears a strong similarity to the short story An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce. The tragicomic tone and philosophy of the film bear many resemblances to absurdist drama, a genre for which Brazil co-writer Tom Stoppard is widely acclaimed. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of production design. Michael Atkinson of The Village Voice wrote, Gilliam understood that all futuristic films end up quaintly evoking the novel past in which they were made, and turned the principle into a coherent comic aesthetic. In the second version of the script, Gilliam and Olverson described the film's setting. It is neither future nor past, and yet a bit of each. It is neither east nor west, but could be Belgrade or Scunthorpe on a drizzly day in February. Or Cicero, Illinois, seeing through the bottom of a beer bottle. In the 1988 documentary The Birth of Brazil, Gilliam said that he always explained the film as taking place everywhere in the 20th century. Whatever that means, on the Los Angeles-Belfast border, whatever that means. Pneumatic tubes are a frequent sight throughout the film. The result is an anachronistic technology, a view of what the Earth might have looked like as viewed from the perspective of a Earth filmmaker that has been dubbed retrofuturism by fellow filmmakers Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro. It is a mixture of styles and production designs derived from Fritz Lang's films, particularly Metropolis and or film noir pictures starring Humphrey Bogart. On the other hand, Sam's reality has a noir feel. Some sequences are shot to recall images of Humphrey Bogart on the hunt, and one character, Harvey Lime, may be named as an homage to the Third Man's Harry Lime. A number of reviewers also saw a distinct influence of German Expressionism as the Earth's seminal, more nightmarish predecessor to Earth's film noir, in general in how Gilliam made use of lighting and set designs. A brief sequence towards the end, in which resistance fighters flee from government soldiers on the steps of the Ministry, pays homage to the Odessa Steppes sequence in Sergei Eisenstein's battleship Potemkin 1925. Strong references exist to the overcomplicated humoristic machinery of British illustrator W. Heath Robinson, published between 1915 and 1942. The grotesque sets were based on George Grosch's paintings of Urs Berlin. The lighting and set design was coupled with Gilliam's trademark obsession for very wide lenses and tilted camera angles, going unusually wide for an audience familiar with mainstream Hollywood productions. Gilliam made the film's wide-angle shots with Zeiss and keyoptic lenses, the latter being a recent technological innovation as one of the first lenses of that short focal length that did not fishy. In fact, over the years, the lens has become informally known as the Gilliam among filmmakers due to the director's frequent use of it since Brazil. Many of the film's exterior scenes were filmed in Les Espaces Zabraxes in noisy Le Grand near Paris, a monumental apartment complex designed by Ricardo Bofill Torre de Arquitectura. The numbering of form, without which no work can be performed by repairmen with the Department of Central Services, is an allusion to George Orwell's flat at Canonbury Square, London, up 6 half flights of stairs, where he lived while writing parts of 1984. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine music and its connections to our previous discussions. Jeff Mulder performed a version of Ari Barros's most famous 1939 song Corolla do Brasil, Watercolor of Brazil, often simply called Brazil in English. The song is a musical ode to the Brazilian motherland. Michael Kamen uses the song as a leitmotif in the film, although other background music is also used. Kamen's arrangement and orchestration of Barroso's song for Brazil made it more pliable to late 20th tastes, to the extent that film trailer composers often used it in contexts that had little to do with Brazil and more to do with Gilliam's dystopian vision. Kamen, who scored the film, originally recorded Brazil with vocals by Kate Bush. This recording was not included in the film nor on the original soundtrack release. However, it has been subsequently released on re-releases of the soundtrack. Gilliam recalls drawing the inspiration to use the song. Sylvia Albertuzzi, in her article Salmon Rushes the Location of Brazil, the imaginary homelands of the fantastic literature, stresses even further the importance that the soundtrack had on the movie's plot and meaning. She suggests, the opening question, "Where is Gilliam's Brazil?" may be answered, quite literally, in a song, just as it is in a song that there is to be found that world where all fall down in children's games. In this chapter, we'll be unraveling the enigma of release and discovering its transformative power. The film was produced by Arnon Milchan's company Embassy International Pictures. Gilliam's original cut of the film was 142 minutes long and ends on a dark note. This version was released in Europe and internationally by 20th Century Fox without issue. However, the film's US distribution was handled by Universal Pictures, whose executives felt that the ending tested poorly. Universal's chairman, Sid Sheinberg, insisted on a dramatic re-edit of the film to give it a happy ending and suggested testing both versions to see which scored higher. At one point, there were 2 editing teams working on the film, one without Gilliam's knowledge. After a lengthy delay with no sign of the film being released, Gilliam took out a full page ad in Variety urging Sheinberg to release Brazil in its intended version. Sheinberg spoke publicly in interviews of his dispute with Gilliam, and ran his own advertisement in Daily Variety offering to sell the film. Gilliam conducted private screenings of Brazil without the studio's approval for film schools and local critics. On the same night when Universal's award contender Out of Africa premiered in New York, Brazil was awarded the awards for Best Picture, Best Screenplay and Best Director at the Los Angeles Film Critics Association. This prompted Universal to finally agree to release a modified 132-minute version supervised by Gilliam in 1985. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of reception and examine its core elements. On Metacritic, the film received a score of 84 based on 18 reviews, indicating universal acclaim. Los Angeles Times critic Kenneth Turan described the film as the most potent piece of satiric political cinema since Dr. Strangelove. Janet Maslin of the New York Times was very positive towards the film on its release, stating, "Terry Gilliam's Brazil, a jaunty, wittily observed vision of an extremely bleak future, is a superb example of the power of comedy to underscore serious ideas, even solemn ones." Roger Ebert was less enthusiastic in the Chicago Sun-Times, giving the film 2 stars out of 4 and claiming that it was hard to follow. He felt that the film lacked a confident grasp on its characters' roles in a story awash in elaborate special effects, sensational sets, apocalyptic scenes of destruction, and a general lack of discipline. However, Ebert did say that there are several scenes in Brazil that show a lot of imagination and effort. Ebert especially enjoyed one scene in which Sam moves into half an office and finds himself engaged in a tug-of-war over his desk with the man through the wall. I was reminded of a Chaplin film, Modern Times, and reminded, too, that in Chaplin economy and simplicity were virtues, not the enemy. Colin Greenland reviewed Brazil for Imagine magazine, and stated that it was a daring, exorbitant vision, sombrely funny and darkly true. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore accolades through a fresh lens, unlocking new perspectives. In 2004, Total Film named Brazil the 20th British movie of all time. In 2005, Time film reviewers Richard Corliss and Richard Schickel included Brazil in an unordered list of the 100 best films of all time. In 2006, Channel 4 voted Brazil one of the 50 films to see before you die, shortly before its broadcast on Film 4. The film also ranks at number 83 in Empire magazine's list of the 500 greatest films of all time. Wired ranked Brazil at number 5 in its list of the top 20 sci-fi movies. Entertainment Weekly listed Brazil as the 6th best science fiction piece of media released since 1982. The magazine also ranked the film number 13 on its list of the top 50 cult films. The film was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, for Best Original Screenplay and Best Art Direction Norman Garwood, Maggie Gray. According to Gilliam in an interview with Clive James in his online program Talking in the Library, Brazil is to his surprise apparently a favorite film of the far right in America. As we progress through this video, let's shift our attention towards home media and uncover its hidden depths. A director's cut of Brazil was released on Laserdisc in the United States in December 1993. It was released by the Criterion Collection as a 5-disc Laserdisc set in 1996 and a 3-disc DVD set in 1999. Featuring the 142-minute cut of the film referred to by Gilliam as the 5th and final cut, Scheinberg's 94-minute Love Conquers All cut for syndicated television, and various galleries and featurettes. Criterion also released a 1-disc, movie-only DVD edition in 2006, while the 3-disc set was revised to be compatible with widescreen televisions. A Blu-ray of the 132-minute US version was released on 12 July 2011 by Universal Pictures. It contains only that version of the film and no extra features. The 142-minute cut was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray and a remastered Blu-ray by Criterion on 4 June 2025. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards film. Other films that have drawn inspiration from Brazil's cinematography, art design, and overall atmosphere include Jean-Pierre Junit's and Marc Corot's films Delicatessen 1991 and The City of Lost Children 1995, Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel's Super Mario Bros. 1993, the Coen Brothers' The Hudsucker Proxy 1994 and Alex Proyas's Dark City 1998. The production design and lighting style of Tim Burton's Batman 1989 have been compared to Brazil. Tim Burton and production designer Anton first studied Brazil as a reference for Batman. The ending of Neil Marshall's The Descent 2005 is inspired by Brazil's, as Marshall explained in an interview. Jupiter Ascending 2015 features a scene that is deliberately designed to resemble the bureaucracy in Brazil, featuring Terry Gilliam in a cameo role and a reference to Statute UG/6. Now, let's dig deeper into television and unveil the hidden treasures it holds within. Production design of the Time Variance Authority depicted in the Disney series Loki is inspired by the fun sci-fi bureaucracy and dystopian design elements of Brazil's Ministry of Information. In the Rick and Morty episode The Reclantis Mix-Up, the ending of Brazil is referenced through a subplot involving a character who is attempting to escape the wafer factory where he works. He is captured but lives with the illusion that he has escaped, as with Lowry. In the Futurama episode How Hermes Requisitioned His Groove Back, Matt Groening and others in the DVD audio commentary cite Brazil as having influenced the depiction of the central bureaucracy. Turning our focus to technology, let's explore its key elements. The highly technological aesthetics of Brazil inspired the set design of Max Cohn's apartment in the film Pi. Brazil also served as an inspiration for the film Sucker Punch 2011 and has been recognized as an inspiration for writers and artists of the steampunk subculture. The dystopian premise of the 2018 video game We Happy Few was largely inspired by Brazil. Remember, knowledge is power. Keep learning, growing, and exploring.